Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. We're still making our way through line 5, the book I worked on with the team at Life Dynamics that we released it in 1996, sorry. And it's pretty much, chapter 1's a fairly representative sample of malpractice cases we saw. And today we're looking at the incomplete abortion or retained tissue. And I started to go through and just look for additional information about the cases where I could identify where the facility was. But I kind of quit that. So if you follow the link below, there's a couple where I just put the woman's pseudonym, a little bit of information, and the Life Dynamics source that I've been unable to find so that I could go further. Now, in this chapter, there are several deaths that I have blogged about. So again, if you follow the link below, there are links to the deaths of Maria Ortega, Janet Foster, Linda Padfield, Elizabeth Tsuji, and Susan Levy. And then we look at some other cases where I went into more detail. One of them was a victim of Raymond Showery. He ran a combination maternity hospital and abortion hospital in El Paso. This guy was a weirdo. And a lot of ghoulish goings on in his clinic, unqualified staff, no backup doctor. But the case we covered in line 5 is a young woman we called Ida. And she was 25 in January 1978 when she went to Family Hospital. And there's a picture of Family Hospital if you follow the link. She wanted to get the abortion over with, so she went there instead of waiting for her family doctor, for her own OBGYN to get back from vacation. So Showery told Ida she was 6 weeks pregnant, performed the abortion. And afterward, her periods seemed to return, but they were very light, and she was gaining weight, and she was teary for no reason. Then one day she felt the baby kick. She went to her OBGYN. He confirmed that the abortion had failed and she was 19 weeks pregnant. So Ida went back to Showery wanting him to finish the job he'd been paid for. He told her he wasn't Sears, he didn't have to guarantee his work, but he agreed he would do a follow-up abortion for $300. Ida said the exam was very painful, like he just put his whole fist up there, just jammed it. After the exam, Showery said that since Ida was so far along, he'd have to charge more than he had quoted. Ida was anesthetized for the procedure, woke up about 5 hours later, laying in a pool of blood. About a week later, she felt something coming out, went to the bathroom, and passed 6 inches of umbilical cord in a small bloody hand. Ida said that after that, she started waking up crying after dreams about chopped up children. And she was hospitalized a week for suicidal depression. And just the icing on the cake, Showery, when he submitted the insurance forms, after he had charged Ida for the abortions, she paid him for the first unsuccessful one and the second botched one that left her injured. He had the insurance refund check cut to him, not to Ida, and he didn't give her the money like he was supposed to. And he actually wound up being convicted for that. The next one, it's another fake clinic. Now, I've talked before about how abortion rights advocates always have their knickers in a twist about pro-life centers, which they call fake clinics that, oh my God, they do ultrasounds and hand out baby clothes, the horror. But they don't seem to have a problem with doctors' offices that make themselves look like clinics so that women are under the impression that they're licensed and inspected by the state when they're not, because they're just the doctor's office. And this fellow, John D. Peeples Jr., called his office Planned Motherhood. And if you follow the link, I've got an ad that he ran during 1985, and it looks like it's an ad for a clinic, not a doctor's office. Although, strangely enough, I've also got a picture of the building the clinic is in, and it looks like a big house. So, but at any rate, to me, that's less than savory to try to look like you're a clinic when you're not. But line 5 recounted the case of Margie, who underwent an abortion there February 28th in 1979. Peoples told Margie he was unable to complete the abortion and to come back on March 2nd. And after this second procedure, she continued to suffer bleeding and pain. She tolerated it for 4 years until July 5th, 1983, when she couldn't take it anymore and went to an emergency room. And she was diagnosed with an infection and inflammatory cysts and endometriosis. A surgeon performed a hysterectomy, and a pathology report found bones from the fetus 4 years later embedded in her uterus. That was what was causing the pain and the infection. Now, the article that was in also notes a case that wasn't covered in Line 5 of a 14-year-old girl I call Wendy, who went in February 1984, and Peeples performed her abortion. Sort of. He sent her home with her 20-week fetus missing its legs and one arm stuck through a hole in her uterus. Wendy suffered bleeding, a distended abdomen, and severe pain. She was admitted to Regional Medical Center in Memphis, where doctors performed surgery and discovered the fetus and the injuries, and these injuries left her unable to have children. And then we move on to Dadeland, kind of the Gosnell prototype. This place was filthy, nasty, unsavory, dishonest. And the first case that we covered in this chapter, and we didn't cover them sequentially, okay, because we were going chronologically, so there were other cases in between. Patricia was 25 when she underwent an abortion by Chatoor Bisal Singh at Dadeland Family Planning, which, you know, again, was a hellhole. After returning home, she hemorrhaged and passed a mangled fetus. She took it back to Dadeland in a plastic bag, and they said, oh, it's just a blood clot, but she took it to a hospital, and they said, yeah, this is the remains of a 16-week fetus, and she had to have additional surgery. Her abortion was performed the same day that Singh also performed the fatal abortion on Ellen Williams. And if you follow the link below, there is a link there to more details about Ellen's death. And of course, that includes more information about Dadeland. And then later in the chapter, they have the story of Hattie, a 21-year-old teacher's aide who went to family planning, Dadeland Family Planning, for an abortion. Hers was performed by Robert Kast, a graduate of the University of Guadalajara School of Medicine. He estimated her pregnancy at 6 weeks, did the abortion, and sent her home. That night she bled heavily and lost consciousness, so she was taken by ambulance to the hospital, where an x-ray revealed a mangled 5-month fetus. The surgeon who performed the surgery to remove it said it looked like the baby had been half-eaten by a dog. Later, Kast admitted that he knew he'd performed an incomplete abortion, but figured that Hattie would pass the remains. And the pièce de résistance of this story. These are just 2 of the horrendous botched abortions at Dadeland. Follow the link below. I provide links to my sources. When the Miami Herald did the expose of Dadeland Family Planning, they interviewed abortion rights activist Janice Compton Carr of the Florida Abortion Council. Her response to all this? In my gut, I am completely aghast at what goes on at that place, but I staunchly oppose anything that would correct this situation in law. Now, the next one was the fellow we refer to as Icky Ricke, Scott Ricke, P. Scott Ricke. A woman identified as Susan had an abortion performed by Ricke at his Women's Surgical Center in Tucson on February 7, 1987. Susan was screaming in pain during the abortion that he kept going back and forth over the course of 3 hours. He'd work a while on her, go do another easier abortion, come back, work a while on her. The head got stuck. Ricke tried to use his hand to get the head out and got his hand stuck. So finally Susan had had enough. She closed her legs and said, I'm not letting you touch me. She kicked him. She said, call me an ambulance. And he would not call an ambulance. Instead, he put her in an employee's car with part of her fetus still hanging out of her body. And about an hour later, he got to the hospital to join her and finish the abortion. And it turned out that Susan had been more than 7 months pregnant. The fetus weighed more than 2.5 pounds. The medical board, when they investigated it, found that Ricke had allowed an unlicensed doctor from Mexico to estimate the gestational age of Susan's fetus, and he concluded that she was only 18 to 22 weeks pregnant, not 7.5 months. The medical board did an emergency suspension of Ricke's license based on violations of 20 violations of standard of care regarding Susan and another patient that Ricke pursued sexually after her abortion. She told the medical board that she felt traumatized by the abortion and unable to tell Ricke no when he showed up at her house to have sex with her. And he also drew negative publicity when he had his staff dump fetuses in the trash of a nearby apartment complex. And this was a distasteful PR disaster, but it wasn't actually illegal. Then we got another National Abortion Federation member, Family Planning Associates Medical Group, where Susan Levy's fatal abortion was performed, was a NAF member. Teresa went to Dayton Women's Clinic for an abortion and paid her $250 fee. Dr. Raymond Robinson started the abortion believing she was 10 to 12 weeks pregnant, but after he removed a fetal leg and some intestines, he thought something was up. And then he gets around to ordering an ultrasound and discovers that she is more advanced in pregnancy than he thought, and asks for an additional $225. While she's on the table with the instruments inside her, asked for another $225. Teresa didn't have the money, so Robinson graciously refunded $150 of her $250 fee and told her to go to her family doctor. Teresa went to St. Elizabeth Medical Center, where doctors induced labor, and she expelled the mangled fetus. Now, the clinic insisted that Robinson had only removed a little placental tissue, not a limb or any intestines, and the amniotic sac hadn't been disrupted. But that doesn't explain why, by the time she got to the hospital, this fetus was missing a leg and its intestines. And then I just cover several cases, I'm not going to go over most of them here, where I need original source documents. And there's one of them, Harold Hoke. I've got information about Hoke, but not about this case. So, like I said, if you follow the link below, I've got summaries of some of the cases. Other ones I went just the pseudonym, the doctor's name if I knew it, and the source. So please follow the link below, look over these cases, follow the links to more details, and if at all possible, try to find these documents for me. Like I said, Crutcher and I did not part ways on the best of terms, so I would not be able to pry them from his cold, dead fingers. Be easier to get Charlton Heston to give up his gun. So that's it for today.